Okay,
So,
it's about that time. So I want to welcome everybody to the June 2021 meeting of the Imaging Special Interest Group of San Jose Astronomical Association. Tonight we're doing a open discussion of whatever topics anybody wants to talk about, really, or images they want to show us that they have come up with lately. We have at least a couple of those. Francesco, do you want to start off, maybe? Could I impose upon you?
so just an update on Nina, given that we talked about that last time.
Mhm.
There's it was just released today, a new architecture for plugins. Now people can develop extensions of Nina without having the main source repository to incorporate their changes. They can be plugins that implement instructions that you drag and drop into the sequencer. So for now, there are two plugins available. One of them is my Smart Meridian Flip, which you can feed with a file that describes the abstraction of your mount, or directly with the Astrophysics APCC Meridian definition file. The other one, which may be of interest to some of you, is the new polar alignment routine. Now, the polar alignment in Nina so far was very, very primitive. It was just slightly more refined than a drift alignment. Now they have a new 3-point polar alignment based on plate solving. So it takes 3 pictures of the sky spaced by, I believe, the default is 20 degrees, but you can set whatever you want. Those don't need to be around the pole. So even if you have an obstructed view of north, you can still align your telescope. So it takes the 3 pictures, plate solves, calculates the deviation from where your polar axis is pointing and where it should be pointing, and guides you through the process of realigning, changing the azimuth and the altitude of your polar axis. Mm-hmm. In theory, it should take you there with just one run. But I noticed that there are some, I don't know if they are round off errors or just the first degree approximation error. It's more precise if you run it twice. And it gets you easily within less than 1 minute of arc for sure. I did 20 seconds. It's pretty good. It's convenient if you don't have a view of the pole.
When it's slewing, is it automated slewing, or does it just ask you to slew?
Good point. Unlike Sharp Cap, the slew is automated.
Huh, okay.
Of course, you need to be careful of what you're doing, because it doesn't. If you slew into the pier, it would be happy to oblige.
Okay. Is it doing 30, 45? How many degrees is it generally moving in each?
The default is 20, but you can set it whatever you want. I normally use 30.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I've used the Sharp Cap routine a lot, and
yeah, me too.
It seems to be excellent. So this is a really good addition to Nina.
So I think that Sharp Cap can even correct for atmospheric refraction, which at our latitude is about 1 arc minute, so it's not that much. But yeah, you can do it if you want. Then it's debatable whether it's best to align with the refracted pole or with the true pole. But Sharp Cap offers that option, whereas Nina doesn't offer that yet. You get the refracted pole, and that's it.
Ah, okay. Well, still sounds good to me. How about that new camera of yours, the 290?
The new camera, yeah. I think that was the last piece. My DSLR was the last holdout from my keep it simple period. I replaced it with the SJAA EAA 294mm, so mono, and I got the 4 LRGB filters from Astronomic. So these are the Deep Sky Astronomic and the L3 Luminance. And so far I'm impressed. And by the way, given that we are here, I'd like to thank Glenn for lending me a mono camera, because I never used one before. So I wanted to understand if what kind of advantage would be there in using a mono camera compared to the DSLR, and I was blown away. And the Jagannath, who provided some sample dark frames that I needed to see, because if you look online, there's lots of people that complain about the amp glow of this camera. And as in general, it's true for any type of sophisticated equipment, there's a lot of people who complain. There's a few people that are happy and post. So you find a lot of bad reviews. It actually, the amp glow, while present, turned out to be not a problem at all. It calibrates out entirely. Not even, there's nothing left behind. Mm-hmm. And it's, so far I haven't had any problem in calibration. I started using flats and flat darks off the bat. So I don't use biases. So far I've taken one library of darks. Compared with the DSLR, where you cannot really do it because you have no control over the temperature. The cooled camera and the temperature stabilized camera is incredibly easier to use in that regard. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to do any form of dark scaling or dark optimization, unless you want to, of course. I found that the files are much easier to process than Bayard raw files from a DSLR. I found that the colors are much more saturated even before any processing, and they don't clip to white as easily. It's also because probably this camera has a very deep well capacity of 66,000 electrons, but it was good. I've been using it once. I used it once from Pinnacles, and the night was good transparency, but seeing was pretty poor, unfortunately. So the resolution, the sharpness is not as good as it could be. I wasn't prepared for the fact that the single most evident advantage of the mono camera compared to the DSLR is in the sharpness. I was expecting noise advantage or benefits in saturation of color. Yes, they're both there, but the sharpness, it really kicks the ball out of the field. It's incredible.
So when you say sharpness, you mean apart from focus entirely, just the wow.
I think it's because the filters that I got have almost a rectangular transmission window, and so each of the three colors is focused exactly in that color and nothing else. Even though I have an apochromatic refractor, there's always some level of focus shift between red and blue. Yeah, I was impressed. Right now I'm taking. I've been taking so far 10 hours from my backyard on M13. If you don't mind me showing it, let me.
No, please.
Share.
That's a 14-bit camera as well, right?
Oh yes, thank you for pointing it out. It's a 14-bit camera.
And that's when you're bin 2x2, which is the default, I think, right?
Right. Yeah, I have no user for a 47 megapixel camera. Sorry. Yeah. So this is a M13 that I'm currently processing. It's 10 hours of integration from the balcony, so from the backyard. So it's about 3 hours and a half for each of the three RGB colors in the course of 4 nights. And let me zoom in and I'll show you what I mean by sharp. It's really, the stars are pinpoints. I'm impressed. And it's also fairly deep. You can, the limiting magnitude of this one is 19.8. You can see some distant galaxy clusters like this one, or slightly closer galaxies like this. I'm going to add more data, of course. And this is from the Bortle 7, so there's still noise in the background, inevitably. From Pinnacles, it was much better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you let me stop this sharing and share another one. Just a second. Okay, so share Safari. This is the firework galaxy that I imaged from Pinnacles 10 days ago. As I said, it's not super sharp. The stars are a little bit bloated because of the poor seeing, but there's detail. The noise is very well contained. The colors are nice. You can see the H2 regions in the camera. Although this is in the galaxy, although this is just an RGB integration I had, and I don't have narrowband filters yet, so I couldn't add the H alpha to make things easier. It's a game changer. I'm really happy that I took this step.
And did you do a synthetic luminance, was it? Or
yeah, basically when you combine the 3 channels in PixInsight, then almost all of the PixInsight tools have the ability, like the convolution or MMT, they have the ability to operate on the 3 channels or on a luminance channel that is calculated on the fly. So it's like a synthetic luminance, but you don't explicitly create it.
So okay, so you don't extract the lightness
no.
With that tool that okay, very cool, beautiful images. You're welcome. Thank you. Did you update PixInsight to this new release that they just put out?
I did. So far, the only difference that I saw is in the weighted batch preprocessing tool, which is convenient because especially with Nina, I configured it to save all those files in one session in one folder. So inside that folder, you find a subfolder called flats, one called darks, one called lights. And with this new tool, you can open the root folder, the parent folder, not the root. And it would, on its own, understand which ones are light, which ones are dark and dark flats based on the metadata, and put them in the correct tab.
That's nice.
So this is the secret to using the right flats for each night. That is, you should be taking flats every night you go out, and this is a way of telling weighted batch processing which ones go with which lights.
Yeah, and if it doesn't get it right, you can always change it manually without having to re-import anything. You just go into the control panel, I think it's called, the tab, and you choose the set of lights that you want to calibrate, and there's a pop-up menu. You can choose what flats will be used for that.
I'm wondering.
So if you're at home, do you really take flats every night?
If I tend to fiddle with the telescope, so I remove the camera, I check, I rebalance.
All right.
Whenever you do it, yes, I have to do it.
But if you didn't do that?
No, I don't. In this case, for instance, today I didn't touch anything, so tonight I'm gonna just take images, take lights without flats.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I also wanted to ask you, so are you gonna ever go to Pinnacles again, or now that you take such beautiful pictures from home, why bother?
It's Pinnacles is so much better.
Okay, so you say that even though you can take wonderful pictures from your porch, and yes, it takes 30 hours of exposure, it's still worth it to go to Pinnacles.
Yes, it's also much easier to process from Pinnacles. What I'm doing, removing the gradients from home is always a problem, even with the mono camera.
And the experience of being out under the sky in Pinnacles is superior also. So.
Agreed.
Yeah, and the experience of doing the driving.
Yeah,
You have to compare little UVIS to that shorter drive, not so dark, to driving all the way to Pinnacles. And
it's quite a challenge. I see often you put in many hours in one night at Pinnacles, and so you must be leaving at 3 a.m. or something which is a tough time. You have a driver?
No. Yeah, normally what I do is I wait until astronomic dawn has arrived. So this season is about 4 a.m. and pack up. I have a thermos of coffee with me. I drink the coffee and then I drive. And in general, I try to sleep in the car while imaging. I don't babysit the telescope.
I do that too.
I'm wondering about your flat darks. Your flat exposures. How are you doing flats, and how are they consistent exposure to exposure? How are you tracking what that is to do darks? You do them later. I mean, does that change a lot, or?
So far, I haven't used the library for flat darks. I just tell Nina to take 10 flats and corresponding flat darks for each of the 3 filters at the beginning of the session. So they will be matched because Nina takes care of that. Whatever length of exposure is needed for each of the filters will be repeated with the dark either the dark filter or when you put the cap on the telescope. Mm-hmm. But I think that given this camera has so little thermal signal, if anybody's interested, I already did some analysis of how much is the thermal signal, and it actually matches what ZWO says, interestingly. But so the thermal signal is so little that I think that you could get away with a library of flat darks exposed for 1 or 2 seconds. My typical exposure is between 2 and 3 seconds. Wow. And there wouldn't be essentially any change. With narrowband, where you have to expose it for maybe 30 seconds for a flat, it could be different. Mm-hmm. For RGB, I don't see it as critical. Okay. You want to calibrate them anyway with the dark, even with a slightly different length, because it removes the offset as well. If you don't do it, given that we don't calibrate, given that CMOS are not really suitable for calibration with bias, you still have all the offset. So with other, this is common with other ZWO cameras. The linearity somehow changes between 0 seconds and 1 second. So anything exposed for less than 1 second has a different response than anything exposed at more than 1 second. So what I normally do is to expose I told Nina not to accept any exposure shorter than 1 second. Okay. For the flats.
I thought it was supposed to be like 0.3 seconds for the ASI 1600.
For this 94 is 1 second, apparently.
So I do all my flats at 0.4 seconds.
Do you have a lot of area?
Narrowband.
I have the ASI 2600, and I've been told that your flat should be at least 3 seconds for that camera. Yeah. I follow the rule. I haven't tested whether it makes a difference.
Okay.
So I can also show you if you're interested. Yesterday I did this experiment here. Some analysis of darks with the camera. So I created a sequence in Nina to expose pairs of darks for 10 seconds, 30, 60, 120, 180, 240, and 300 seconds. For each of them, I prepared a Python script that subtracts one image from the other. And in this way removes all the fixed pattern noise and fits them with a normal distribution to estimate essentially the standard deviation without really calculating using the standard deviation operation that is sensitive to outliers. Whereas if you fit with the normal curve, that is less of a problem. So from this, with the gain, I calculate the actual noise in electrons, and from there the dark signal. And if you plot them, it's really almost perfectly linear. And in this case, with the gain 120, the read noise is 1.974 electrons. So very, 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 very low. As a strange characteristic, the read noise in this camera it shows up as banding. So if you look at the dark frame, you're going to see that our horizontal bands change from frame to frame. So it's actually noise, but it has a structure, which is strange. Still, it doesn't show up in any of the lights. It's only, this is the order of magnitude, 1.4, 1.9 electrons. So as long as you swamp it under photon noise, you're fine.
Okay. What are you using for an illumination source for your flats? How are you doing your flats?
I've been using for the longest time an iPad.
Okay.
And an iPad Pro, actually. And to my surprise, it didn't work with the 294. I don't have a clue why. It's not related to the way that it is illuminated. Even if I get very strange patterns in the flats. Even if I rotate the iPad compared relative to the telescope, there's no change in the pattern. And no amount of diffusing material that I can put in between. I actually went and I bought a quarter-inch thick nylon cutting board to act as a diffuser. So there's no pattern can go past that, but still it shows. Then I realized that if I take sky flats, there's no pattern at all. So it's not a problem with the camera or with the filter. And to my surprise, I took out from cold storage an old iPad 2 that I had, and the iPad 2 makes the most beautiful flats. The iPad Pro the 294 doesn't like it, but it's fine with the iPad 2. So I don't have a good explanation.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. In case I run into something like that. I also have an iPad 2 laying around here somewhere.
Sorry, Francesco. You say that what kind of time you're using for your flat?
It's about it's between 2 and 3 seconds. I think that last night was a 2.5 for blue and a 2.8 for red and green.
Yeah. What's your target for your ADU for that, or what are you using as a criteria for your flats?
Nina, I programmed Nina to get to have a median value of 50% of full scale. So the ADU is 32,000, in the vicinity of 32,000.
Okay.
It's a 16, although it's a 14-bit camera, the driver scales up everything to 16-bit. So the full range is 65,000.
Yeah, talking about flat, I'm doing a flip flat. Of course, with an Arduino, not buying a flip flat, and because I had a lot of problem with the normal tracing pad, with especially sulfur too, with a very wide lens, 100 millimeter. I don't know why, so I completely changed the panel, and I go with 4 panel of 2-inch square of 48 LED each, and that's definitely better in terms of pattern. Probably there were, I don't know, some unevenness in the illumination. Yeah, but anyway, the cutting board idea can be a good idea, because I have the problem of filtering because the hundreds of LED are too bright in this moment, so I have to reduce the. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting. Steve, did you want to share that image you were talking about a little earlier? And tell us about your acquisition, your new gear.
Sure. After 2 years of working with the Star Adventure and a Nikon D5600, I started getting new equipment at the beginning of the year. I got this telescope. It's William Optics 61 Mark II. It was a small enough telescope to put on the Star Adventurer. And that works fine unless the wind blows. In which case, the Star Adventurer just can't hold it still. And so I ordered this mount. It's an Ioptron CEM 40. And that was in early February. And that was the last thing I received. After a while, I thought I was never going to get it. So I bought the camera. It's an ASI 2600. It's a 25 megapixel camera, APS-C size sensor. So in some ways, it's like the Nikon D5600. One of the nice things about it is it has a hub so that you can connect the USB cables from the focuser and the guide scope camera from the main camera. And in this scheme, then I've got only one cable that runs up there to the scope. It comes in through the bottom of the mount and comes out through the back of the dovetail cradle.
Is that a USB-C socket that I see, you know, on the saddle there, I guess you call it, near where the cable comes out from your focuser, your focus motor? Or is that just a different slot?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
it's not. This mount is wired for USB 2. The camera is USB 3, though the connectors it provides for the other accessories are USB 2. Mm-hmm. So I have to run my own cable for USB 3 to the camera. Okay. There was, I also got the focuser at the same time as the camera. That was a fluke. As you know, that we went through a long period there where none of the dealers had anything on the shelves. So if you saw it, you better get it right then or it'll be gone. That happened with the camera and with the focuser. I noticed that Agena Astro had the camera. They said they had 8+. I ordered it. The next day they were all gone. I got an email from them saying that the focuser had come in and they had more than 10 in stock. So I ordered it, and the next day they were all gone. So I was lucky to get those, and unfortunately they came on the same day. So I had to decide which one am I going to learn first. I decided on the focuser. I thought that would be easier. So I have a whole lot of equipment to learn. I'm a total beginner again. Many of the things, of course, that I learned using this Star Adventure and the Nikon camera do carry over. I'm still using APT, astrophotography tool, to run the rig. But I discovered it has 3 times more features than I'd ever been using. I didn't have the equipment to use those features, so I had to learn a whole lot of new features. Whoops, wrong way. I did take this picture with the camera. This was when I still had the Star Adventurer.
Markarian's chain.
Oh, I see. I pushed the wrong button. One of the things I got a call from the dealer, High Point Scientific, about a month after I ordered it. And they said, you know, that mount that you ordered is being replaced with a new model. Is that okay? Well, you don't have any choice. So of course I said, okay. And I asked what the differences were, and they said, well, it comes with an 11-pound counterweight instead of a 10-pound counterweight. Actually, there's a long list of differences between the old model CEM 40 and the 2021 model. All
right.
One of the ones that they didn't mention to me, as if I had a choice. You don't have a choice. You can't buy the old model. Of course, you're going to get the new model. It finally came in May. And one of the things I discovered right away is a cradle is completely different. If any of you have the CEM 70 or the CEM 40G, you probably see this kind of cradle. This is the same, this cradle has built into it room for Ioptron's guide scope. It's just an empty spot there on the left side of the cradle. What is different is it still handles both the wider dovetail and the smaller Vixen dovetail, which is the kind that came with the telescope. Unfortunately, the Vixen dovetail goes in that bottom slot. You cannot run a cable under it. That is, the cable and the Vixen would be in the same place. So if you want to run a cable up through the mount, you have to have the Losmandy style dovetail, which was no problem. I called High Point Scientific and they sent one right out. And here's the way it works. See, now I have room to run the cable. Another challenge in moving from my old rig to the new one, if you see how the focuser worked fine when I had the Star Adventurer, and I was using the other side of the red dovetail, which is an Arca Swiss type mount, and there was plenty of room for the focuser. I discovered that there's two things you have to provide for when you get a focuser for your telescope. First, it has to fit the telescope. That is the appropriate bracket available so the screws will line up with the holes that are provided in your telescope. Well, this SJAA EAA focuser is absolutely great for this William Optics 61 Mark II. That was a piece of cake. Well, when I got the mount, I discovered there's something else you have to provide for, which just happened to work out with my old rig. It doesn't work with this rig. You have to have a place to put the focuser. That is, you can see that without the extra space that I've provided, the focuser would collide with the cradle. So what I did was I used the old Vixen dovetail as a spacer. So that lifts the telescope up enough that there's room for the focuser that sticks down below the bottom of the telescope.
That was good outside the box thinking there.
Yeah, well, it solved, I got two problems solved by getting the Lonsmandy dovetail. And the circular thing there on the right side is the lens cap for the guide scope, which my model doesn't have. And here you can see that we have just enough space for the focuser. Decided I better learn these things, and I'm learning APT, learning how to use a cooled camera, learning how to use a focuser, including autofocus with APT, which is they have a whole new improved autofocuser in APT, and it really works great, except it is slow. It takes 6 minutes to do an autofocus. Then APT does have provision for adjusting your focus according to changes in temperature. You just tell it how many focuser steps per degree you want it changed, and it will track it through the night. And I've only done this once. This whole thing is so new to me. I just finally set it up to make the automatic adjustment. And at the end of the evening, I did another autofocus to see how close we were. And the difference was in the noise level. It was like 3 or 4 focuser steps, which is the kind of thing that's smaller than the repeatability error. So that worked out fine, but I didn't have a huge change either, but apparently I did pick a good coefficient. So I said, I'm not going to go to a dark site and with a long drive while I'm learning how to use this. I do it from the patio. I took this picture last night of our side patio, and I worked out there many nights just practicing and learning how to use the equipment, learning new features in the software. And you can see this is not a great place to shoot from because of the limited amount of sky available. And the other thing is you see right above the top of the fence there is a street light on an 8-foot high pole. And this, I just discovered this problem in the last month. Sometime about 6 months ago, that light burned out. And I said, Lori, under no circumstances are you to call and report that needs to be fixed. But apparently somebody did call, and so about a month ago, they fixed it and the light's back on. And this picture was taken right after sunset. The light had just come on. This picture was taken about 45 minutes later, and you can see that light is lighting me up thoroughly. There's another one just like that. Light is about 40 feet away. There's another one behind me as I'm taking this picture, also about 40 feet away. It's you can see the top of the fence is lit up. There's another one across the street. This is totally not a good place to take fine astrophotos, but it's what was available.
Glenn will show you though that you can fix that with a little cardboard, plywood. Isn't that right, Glenn? All right, if he doesn't say it, I'll say it.
Yeah.
So what you do is you just screw some plywood 2 feet above your fence in the direction of those lights. And it's not going to be pinnacles, but it'll be better.
Yeah, I think so. I had some trouble in picking up reflections in the telescope, which I don't know. I know now where the reflection is coming from. It's inside the field flattener, and I'm going to see if I can fix that. But before I was an astrophotographer, I was a photographer, and I did think about just putting up a black backdrop, you know, about 8 or 9 feet high, and just temporary each night. But the secret, though, in taking pictures in this kind of environment is just to keep at it. I started out at the end of May. I wanted to learn how to use the APT's automatic meridian flip. So somebody had just mentioned to me M101 and the fact that it never sets for those of us at this latitude. Maybe you have to be at a little higher latitude, but anyway, it's very high in the sky here. And at that time, it passed the meridian about 10:30.
Looks like Steve has frozen. Steve, maybe you can try exiting and coming back. That might help. Okay.
I have a quick question, if there's a pause in the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Dave. This is my first SJAA meeting. And so I've really enjoyed what I've been listening to. I don't have any experience with the technical side of things with like amateur photography. I've done a little bit of photometry, like I've taken other people's images and run numbers on that and stuff with my grad school research and stuff. But I am, you know, I'm often like teaching students and stuff like that, and I'm often in some sort of position where we're interested in doing some sort of like night out, and like, you know, they want to do some sort of camping under the stars kind of thing. But I also am interested in getting into astrophotography. So this is the first time I'm ever hearing of pinnacles. I'm actually not from California. So I was just wondering, I guess as a more direct question, if there is interest in, like, if people go out to pinnacles, is this a type of place, I was just looking it up, is this a type of place that, like, I know certain meetup groups that I'm sure would like to go out there as a group or something like that. Is that something that happens at pinnacles, or is it like kind of a you're on your own, kind of just camping out by yourself kind of thing? Is it friendly to groups?
Pinnacles it was a national monument a few years ago. It became our newest national park. I think it probably still has that distinction as the newest national park, and it's a beautiful place. And I'm sure that there are meetup, things going on over there during the day. And we have had meetups and, club functions in the past that were observing and also astrophotography get-togethers. They were not usually through meetups, I think, but and we've been limited lately by COVID situation as far as getting together in groups. But my associate here, Glenn Newell, runs workshops, not in Pinnacles, but in other places that we're hoping to get things going on soon. We've got these Starry Nights, star parties that happen in the area, and a couple different places that people are going to observe. So there are ways that you can get out and get under the stars and observe or watch, learn about astrophotography. We're working on getting it going again now that the restrictions have been dropped. Glenn may be able to add more.
And one resource, if you go to sjaa.net, there should be a tab that says resources, I think. Let me look.
Yep. Oh, cool. Yeah, because these are some of the other questions I had in my mind,
Yeah.
are like dark zones and stuff.
So there's a viewing locations under resources. And so these are places, you know, and it tells you the ones that you have to have a docent with you and the ones you can just go on your own type thing.
Cool.
So these are all ones that well, I guess I haven't been to all these places, but anyway, there are other sites that we have in cooperation with the Open Space Authority, the Santa Clara Open Space Authority, and those are places that we go to have events with OSA docents, and we do imaging workshops or clinics at a place that's only like half an hour from San Jose, and it's, you know, not anywhere near as dark as Pinnacles, but it's pretty dark. It's, I think, a good combination of close drive and darkness. So we'll be doing that new moon Saturdays starting up here as soon as we, I'll talk about that a little later tonight. Yeah, I think we want to do one with just club members before we start inviting the public out again.
So
that's the
so
plan.
about Pinnacles, because I go there almost twice a month. So the rules are, there are two sides at Pinnacles. They're called East and West. So East side is open 24/7. You can go there anytime, but you have to basically pay ticket to stay. You cannot camp overnight unless you book camping site. You cannot stay there to sleep. For the west side, the barrier is now closed. If you want to go to the West Pinnacles site, you have to be there before 8 p.m. when the bar is open. After that, the bar is closed and you cannot enter at all. So these are the rules for Pinnacles for now. At least if you want to go there for a camping, you have to book in advance, probably a month ahead, campsite. Yeah, so there are nice campsites there, but you have to be a month ahead in the schedule if you want to book a campsite.
But there are BLM places too, right? Where you know, not as hard to get to and just as dark.
Yeah, there's a. I think you're referring to the what's the name? Panoche Hills or something like that. There is on Panoche Road, which is between Piscinas and and Central Valley, near Mercy Hot Springs.
Right by Mercy, across the street from Mercy Hot Springs, basically.
Yes. I believe it's closed for public use during the summer because of risk of wildfires. It's open between October and April.
I have been told by some that they can get special permission to get in there, so it's possible.
Yeah, you can, but you have to book it in advance, and typically, and we depend on the weather, so you know. But
yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, for my purposes, I think what Glenn showed me at first was great. You know, these alternate viewing locations, and then some of the events he was talking about. I definitely, like, as time goes on, I would definitely be interested in attending and checking those out. Yeah. And then some of these other locations are great too. I definitely want to look into this. And I also was wondering about purchasing my own starting equipment. I don't know if that's appropriate, or if anybody has any, like, I like to ask for Googleable terms so that I don't take up too much time, but like, is there anything I should look up or dive down into?
Well, the club does have a loaner program. It's been somewhat hampered by the whole COVID thing. And there's not necessarily, you know, like a whole astrophotography rig or with cameras and stuff. But one of the things the club likes to do is have that program so that you don't end up buying, you know, 3 or 4 telescopes while you're figuring it out, right? You first of all figure out if you're really interested or not, right? And then what equipment you like to work with before you go and spend money. The other thing is, you know, if you come to some of my events, you'll see what people have purchased and what works for them. Also a great resource, which I talk about, and my lectures are online, by the way, on the SJAA YouTube channel and my channel, is AstroBin. So most of us post our stuff on a site called astrobin.com. And one of the things that people do when they post there is they post the gear that they used to take the image. So if you were interested in, you know, a certain camera, like Francesco was talking about, you could search for that camera and see what people have done with that camera, for instance, or a combination of a camera and a telescope and a mount or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, the lectures that I give are also intended to kind of point you in the right direction and stuff too. So
awesome. Yeah, thank you. This is great.
Excellent.
And about pinnacles, until the year 2019, before COVID, the SJAA and the park rangers co-hosted the star parties, public star parties there. And the problem with pinnacles when you do something on the weekend on the east side, you have to hope that people don't see you, not because it's illegal, but because if they see you, they're going to have 200 people that want to look through your telescope.
Right.
Those star parties were exceptionally popular. The attendance was amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait for that to start up again. I definitely want to attend one.
We seem to be right on the verge of it, so hopefully that's going to happen. Steve, I see you're back, and you want to screen share and continue where we left off?
I showed you the picture. Did you see the picture of the galaxy?
I saw Markarian's chain, and I'm not sure. Did you show us another one after that?
You didn't see anything after Markarian's chain?
We saw your backyard.
Yeah, we saw your backyard.
That was it.
Yeah,
that's right.
As Hai was talking to me about that, so I know we were still connected at that point. This will, I hope, go smoother this time, now that I know. Let me make sure we have the picture. Okay. And now I will go to screen share. And this time I will double click on the screen. And here we are with the screen. And that's the picture, M101, Pinwheel Galaxy. This is a tiny, tiny piece of the full frame. That was actually one of the things I thought was good about getting the 25 megapixel sensor is I could take a fairly small piece. This is like 1,300 pixels wide by 800 pixels high. So the stars are a little bit big, but the nice thing about having the new mount, you see the stars are pretty round, and that's what you get with 5 hours on a well-lit patio. So I was pleased with how it came out. And I also put this link in here in case people years from now are looking at the YouTube, they can find the link where you can, the pictures posted. And that's the end of that.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Steve.
And now,
you can unshare your screen if you're done.
okay. Well, let's see. We only have
right there
offering me a new share. Oh, you are, here we are. I find it. Stop share.
There you
Okay.
go. Excellent. Thanks a lot. Well done. Gian,
Before Sean, can I just cut in for a second since we're an hour in the meeting and, you know, after a little while, sometimes people tend to cut off. I just wanted to point out to you folks that this is Bruce's last meeting as host, and I'll be taking over. And Bruce has done an amazing job for 4 years or so, and I really think he needs a little round of applause. So could you please unmute yourself and clap or stuff like that?
Thank you,
Bruce, you really deserve it. I think you're going to be a very tough act to follow.
in my honor and pleasure, and I'm excited that you're taking over because I know that you're going to do a good job. And you know, I think we're going to maybe divide the labor with a couple other.
I'm
people.
really hoping so, but
And,
that'll be next week's topic. I mean, next month's. But right now, thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you. My pleasure. I appreciate it.
May I cut in with a question?
Sure.
I'm also a new guy. My name's Rich. I do have a telescope and camera and have started photography, but I believe it was Bruce that mentioned we're about to start New Moon Saturday night observing sessions again. July 10th is a new moon and it happens to be a Saturday. Should we expect one then?
Glenn?
Yeah, so I'm on the calendar for Little Uvis for that sounds familiar, that date. Yeah, so New Moon Saturday in July. So probably what that will be is what I would call a field clinic versus a public workshop. So it would be SJAA members, and my hope is that at least some of the people that are further along in the hobby would be helping me test out some screen sharing with local Wi-Fi and whatnot, so that when we have the public there, we can show them things from our telescopes on their smart devices, and they won't have to lean right over us, you know, masks or no masks, because of the continuing risk of COVID or what have you. So that's what I'm hoping for the next session, and I can talk more about that. And the clinics will not be, when we do these SJA private events, they're not on Meetup. They're on the SJAA Astro Imaging Google group. So if you're not already on there, then you wanna get on that.
Yeah, I just joined.
Yeah, that's where we'll be announcing the details.
Meetup, like, I mean, is there a link on Meetup or something?
There's a link on the sjaa.net that we talked about before under, let's see, classes and program, tab, Astro Imaging Group. And there should be, yeah, Google Groups. Here's the link next to Bruce's picture. Yeah.
Perfect.
So you know, the clinics, I generally might not even take a rig myself, and the idea is that myself and others would be more available to help people kind of hands-on with their rigs, and it's more, you know, for the club members to get together and get some photons. And then the public workshops, you know, the club members are welcome to come and image as well, but we also invite the public. And then I generally give a lecture between sunset and astronomical dark. And then I demonstrate deep space astrophotography, usually with a club rig. So that's the difference between what I call the astro imaging workshops and the field clinics. That's how it's been in the past, and I'm looking to try to shake things up a little bit and do some different things going forward. But most of my energy has been going into helping the visual side learn some astrophotography for the public outreach, public star parties, again, so that they can share views through their telescopes to people's smart devices, so people don't have to come up and put their eyes and hands on the telescope, right? And it's not only to protect the observer, but also that, you know, we're not spreading germs between the various attendees and stuff too, which could be a liability for the club. So that's where I've been spending a lot of time with the technology and seeing what the visual observers can easily absorb versus doing full-on astrophotography. So I'm pretty much almost done with that, so I'll be able to focus more on the imaging program, hopefully going forward.
Okay. Excellent.
Yep.
So moving on, Gian, you wanted to talk about selective gradient?
Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We hear you.
Okay. I'd like to follow up. Desktop one. Can you see my screen?
Normally scale gradient. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Last week, Grant sent out the email regarding the latest Pixel Insight include a new normalized scale gradient tools, script. So, and last week I did make a try out, and it ended up pretty good. So, I'd like to show you, it's usually, right, I had a lot of problem on O3. And so it always has a lot of sky gradient. So, and I'm going to show you those frame. Okay, they are without normalized scale gradient. So, okay, let me start. So you can see the cloud and gradient show up sometimes left and right. So, and then I apply this one with the same frame, right? I apply with a normalized scale gradient. So, and in January, right, the gradients reduce a lot, and especially after the integration, it look much better. So I'm going to show you the result. And this one is for squid
nebula.
Yeah, squid nebula is very fake nebula. So I had to spend a lot of time and almost 30 minutes, 30 minutes exposure for that. So let's get, and the way how we use this gradient, use a normalized scale gradient is very simple. So basically, I just select those of the register frame. All the frame have to be registered, and and then you load those files into forget it. For my case, I just load everything, include a short exposure, long exposure, and once you load those files in, and you have to be find a way to find your reference frame, your best frame for this or this of subframes. So, for example, I find out 72 is my best. Oh, where is it? Anyway, it's somewhere. So, and then
how did you? Sorry to interrupt, but how did you determine your best? By blinking, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, blinking. Also, I use the subframe selector. I just run once, and then I will get a ranking, and I find the best one, I think, and I also blinking, and then it's somewhere here. It's hiding somewhere here. So, for example, okay, let me see, and then you just set reference, and they do some I think photometry, analyze this subframe and as a reference, and then they'll calculate, and then once done, you can change this value. And for me, you pick one of friend and just for me, I just pick a default value. It's slow, so yeah.
While we're waiting, Jean, you take 30, are these taken from your house?
Yeah.
So you take
Yeah,
30-minute exposures in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, just that's the
Okay.
only way I get a fake nebula out, right? So
All
They're
right.
narrow. Are they 3 nanometer narrowband?
yeah,
3
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Extra down 3 nm. So and then usually you just adjust this number, try to make those point in line with this reference. But for me, right, I just take a default value, and so very simple. You just choose your best frame as a reference and click OK. That's it. And then and then you will create a wet key, N wet. This one is very important. You need to remember when you do the image integration, pick this string. So and then we'll integrate that for you and based on the weighting. So that's it. And I show you the result.
Did you use the same reference for all 3 channels or a different reference?
Just
for
one.
each
It's
channel?
individual.
One reference.
Yes, one based on individual filter.
One per filter.
Yeah, one per filter. And so, but anyway.
So 3 references.
Yeah, so yeah, you reference for your individual. Okay, yeah. Because because HA, right, have very few gradient. It's very clean. The only problem is that O3, I had a lot of problem with that. So, and let me show you the result. Where is my, here. This is the after integration frame. So this is a regular one. Integrate this one based on the subframe selector as before. I integrate that. So you see this squeeze here, and this use normal like gradient, scale gradient. It got better contrast, and also you see here is so bad, right?
Much better.
My sky here this side, and this time here is a little bit better. And so that's, I think that this is a very good script to renting the subframe. Yeah, so it's good one. Yeah. And I just show you. Yesterday I post on the this.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's great. And so yeah, it's a much very I can pull out a lot of detail. Yeah.
What is that?
Squid, giant squid.
Very giant.
Well, what is it in real life?
Pardon?
What is it really?
It's an old planetary, I think. Right?
This was just recently discovered by amateur.
Right.
The name is here. Nicro Autos on the 2011. It's amateur.
Extremely
bipolar outflow emitted. Okay, so it's okay, I got it.
Yeah.
No, I was just wondering why it wasn't spherical, but that answers that.
Yeah. And I think this one is like an arrowhead in the K, not in the fighting band. So okay, that's
very
it.
nice.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I like the flying bat too.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to share? PJ, did you want to share an image or two? Or... Can't hear you. There you go.
Yes. Okay. Well, better. Just to introduce myself to people who don't know about me. I have been a member of SJAA off and on since the late 70s. And I have moved out to an area near Yosemite where I have my spread, and I built my own observatory and much of my own equipment. So this is what I've been working on in the last few days. This is like kind of hot off the press, so to speak. So this is the Lagoon Nebulae M8, M21 too, but whatever. So this is down in Sagittarius, or is it Scorpio? Anyway, it's down there. You can practically see it with the naked eye, and when the conditions are good, at least I used to be able to before my getting old. But I'm taking this picture with an 11-inch Raza, which is a very fast astrograph with a CMOS camera, which is a cooled camera, but it only shoots in color. So the advantages of that is I don't have to do as much stuff as a mono camera has to do. Disadvantages of that, you can't do as much as you can with a mono camera. But it works okay for me. So I've been trying to slowly improve my technique, and the camera combination that I'm using is quite fast. It's f2.2, so it's a 620 millimeter focal length at f2.2, and so exposures are rather short before you get burnout. They're only 30 seconds long, but there's a lot of them. There's about 300 subs in this shot that I've taken over the last few days, and I've been working on how to develop them. One thing that I have found is that in PixInsight, the cosmetic correction module is a very bad idea. It truncates the high and damages the image quite badly. So I have not been using cosmetic correction on it. Integration, stacking is all per the standards, which seem to work quite well. And I progressed this all the way through a little bit of arcsine stretch just to help set the black point, and then I processed this in Star Tools, which is another astrophotography program that I could use, which is easy to use, me anyway. So this is I got this to be quite colorful, but it doesn't have to be. This is sort of a number of the progression steps, if I will, regressing and developing this thing. You keep trying and see what happens. And color balances get interesting as you develop the nebula independently of the stars. So that's always a tricky thing. It shows what happens when I use cosmetic correction in PixInsight. I got this, which is fatal error. More to learn about PixInsight. So any questions on that?
I haven't made time to do it yet, but I've been amazed again with the auto-integrate.js script that uses cosmetic correction to do things that I always struggled with when I was using it manually to remove column defects. And so I keep meaning to open up the JavaScript and see what it's doing, but
well, I don't know that there's really much of anything that cosmetic correction could possibly do to this. One interesting thing that I have also figured out that I can get away with is on the dithering side of things. I only have to dither every 10 exposures or so, and I get this type of image. Unfortunately, I can't get any of the automation programs, Sync Generator Pro, Nina, a bunch of others to work with my equipment, which is, of course, the RASA, the MX Plus mount, which is a proprietary thing, auto guider, QHY camera. So in order to dither, for instance, I whipped out my trusty old Canon that I used to do astrophotography with, hooked it up to PhD, it guides away, and it just arbitrarily dithers after the exposure that I set in backyard EOS. And then I go through and blink and discard them. It seems to be simple, stupid, quite reliable, don't have to worry about it. And I don't have to figure out the wishness of the why with coordinating all these various astronomic programs, which a lot of people seem to enjoy, but I don't. So that's kind of where I'm at with my progress, good or bad.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges with the RASA, is having that many subs, right? And there's a lot of programs that choke on that amount of data. They run out of memory or whatnot. I know that before I was using PixInsight, CCD Stack would do that. And like the weighted batch pre-processing script in PixInsight tends to run out of memory due to JavaScript garbage collection problems, I guess. But I was pleased. I again, singing the praises of the auto integrate script. I did go back and found some data that I had never successfully processed because it was from a RASA 11 and color ASI 1600 from itelescope.net. For a while, they had that combination available, and I had let me see, what was it here? 200 some odd, 205 60-second exposures that I was never able to successfully process before. And with the auto integrate script, it just did the whole thing in one go, and so that was a pleasant surprise.
Glenn,
yeah.
Sorry, talking about auto integrated, in my experience, I had to stop. I tried, but I had to stop with the previous version, not the very last one of PixInsight, because I was having a lot of crashes on my installation of PixInsight. I have no idea why. They were classical, referred to zero memory, something like that. I let's say take away that, I reinstalled PixInsight, and magically they disappear. Now I have installed the new version of PixInsight, the last one, the last week, and honestly, I have not yet tried the auto integration script again. I will soon, but that was my experience with auto integration. It was strange, but
well, there was like one day where he pushed something that had an error in it, but other than that, I think he's pushed like maybe 4 versions since we last talked last month. So be sure you get the latest. Like it used to bomb out on one shot color, and this was, as I said, a color ASI 1600 and a RASA 11, and it processed all the way through without a problem. But so I don't know what to tell you other than it's working for me.
Yeah. No, I know. I was just for the record, not and probably knowing my let's say normal luck that I have, I got exactly the the wrong version. Okay.
Well, it seems like I seem to have avoided a lot of issues. One thing, I never use batch processing. I do it step by step because I'm going to do a several step culling of my subs. I mean, I'm going to use blink, sure I am, but also I'm going to use a subframe selector and use that to select it. So I only do one step at a time to go through this, and I've never had a problem with crashing with upward of 400 subs with the Raza. So
it's
for what it's
definitely
worth, that's how I seem to have avoided some of those issues. I also don't use well, I guess it's a subframe selector for the subs. I'm getting some sort of weighted average, but I don't do normalization either. Because of where I am, I don't really need to do that because I'm always hovering around portal 2.5 to 3 stars as far as the seeing goes up here with the transparency and whatnot. So, of course, that's why that's a big reason why I'm living up here. So you guys in San Jose with your big gradient issues.
in 10 hours
It's amazing
per
what you
filter.
guys can do. So anyway, so that's one picture. Now that I figured out a few things, I can now go over the last 2 weeks of data and redo all those and see if I can make them to come out. But I'm top photography tonight because it's almost a quarter moon, and I really don't do any astrophotography when the moon's up. So,
hey Bruce, I got
on
one.
it goes. What's that?
I say I got a picture.
Okay, well, thanks, PJ.
All right, let me get off of here. Stop share. There we go.
Thanks. Hi.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to share here. I wonder if I went full screen in Lightroom, if it would share the full screen. We're going to find out.
That is looking good.
That share?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I've lost you guys, but I'll talk. So this is a transition photo for me. I've used a refractor, 560 millimeter refractor exclusively until about a month or two ago when Glenn lent me a 8-inch RC. And so this is the only picture, but I'm happy with it. The first picture and only picture I've taken with, something with a longer focal length. So this is a 1600 millimeter or so focal length. It has this odd thing I can't explain where the bright stars have more than 4 lines, but whatever. Something I'll figure. Well, I'm not going to keep that reflector anyway.
But, can you maximize the entire image? Is that possible?
What do you mean by that?
Well, the bottom of the galaxy is a little cut off, and
it is
only showing a part of the.
Maybe I'll undo what I did. The full screen, or let's see. Let me go to fit, and then try that. How, does it fit now?
We did it. It did fit in Lightroom a minute.
Okay, we'll just stick with.
We see the whole thing now.
Okay, we'll just stick with Lightroom. It's funny because it's sort of odd on my screen, but I don't care. Okay, so there you go. So it's the needle. And yeah, I mean, my first shot, and things took a while to understand why the long focal length was different and all the mistakes, like I went back a few years and started making the kind of mistakes I made, in the beginning. That's one of the things I wanted to mention to, I forget your name, the guy who was talking about bringing kids and who did astrometry. Is he still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you my advice is it's a difficult hobby. It's well worth pursuing and sticking with, but it isn't the simplest thing to get going in the beginning. So, you know, expect a few bumps on the road in the beginning. That was my experience in the beginning. And then I had a lot of smooth sailing. Then I borrowed this telescope, and, you know, it took me a few weeks till I got back to where I was. So that a few weeks instead of a few, you know, 6 months, like in the beginning, I can't complain. I made mistakes like, you know, my plate solving wasn't working. Well, duh, I didn't have any of the small, you know, sized solver files loaded, because with my refractor, you know, with a 1.5 degree field of view, you don't need things that are 20 arc minutes. And all of a sudden now I did. Anyway, there you have it. So Needle Galaxy. Oh, by the way, another funny thing, just an anecdote of this story is, you know, it's sort of nice that you get that those dust lanes in the needle, right?
Mhm.
I mean, this isn't, you know, picture of the day or anything, but I was happy with it. But the funny thing is the subs, you know, they just look like, you know, like a white, two white things with dark in between, and you don't see that dust at all on the subs. You really have to integrate before you see something like that, which was comical to me. And I look at these subs and I go, that's weird, I'm doing something wrong. But it integrated just fine.
Was this done in your backyard?
Yeah, yeah. This is, I don't know, 20 hours in my backyard.
Mhm. Okay. Well,
Anyway, there you have it. End of show.
that's a very nice image. Hi, thank you.
But you're going to have to explain why these stars over here have all those extra points. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, the diffraction spikes are normal for an RC, but
Yeah, 4 of them are, but
4
not.
of them, yeah. If you did on separate nights, I think your diffraction spikes might not match up. Maybe
Oh, is that right?
something to do with it.
I mean, the camera didn't rotate, but of course it was separate nights if I had 20 plus hours.
Maybe that spider's moving around inside.
Yeah.
They
Somebody's screwing with me, PJ. Somebody's screwing with me.
You have spiders on your spiders, huh?
Well, anybody else have anything that they wanted to share, or want to talk about any projects going on, anything coming up?
Hey, Bruce, this is Marcel. I have a question.
Sure.
Oh. I joined several of these meetings. I really learn a lot, and I love listening to you guys and see that you have very similar problems to what I have. So I was working on a project. I recently also got into 3D printing. And so I noticed that you generally don't find Batinov masks for like really small focal lengths. And I see, Glenn, I think you have a 3D printer there behind you, right? So I did print some of them, for example, here for a 60mm Orion guide scope. Mm-hmm. Does anyone of you have ever experimented with this? Because I'm not too, it's not that good as on the big telescopes. The spikes is not that visible. I was wondering if anyone knows what's the best ratio between the spikes. I know it's 20 degree angle that you go for, but nobody tells you really what the distance between the spikes should be, these things should be, and the online generators for these normally break for short focal lengths. They don't really work very well. So just wanted to check if anyone has done something with it before.
So the good news is that there's something that works really well, and the bad news is it's for sale versus something that you print. So I'm going to paste it in the chat here. So it's a laser etched.
Okay, so it needs to be really narrow then, right?
Yeah. So that's for what I did was I figured out what my biggest DSLR lens diameter was, physical diameter, not the, so it was like 72, I think. So I bought an 85mm, one of these, and a filter holder. And then I just use that same one on all the different camera lenses that I have.
Glenn, real quick, I think you accidentally only sent that message to me instead of the.
Oh,
I can't see it in the.
All right. Yeah, good catch. Let me do that again. Thank
By
you
the way,
for noticing that.
Marcel, why don't you just, it's a guide scope, right? So you don't have to focus it all the time. Why not just point it at a really bright star and
Yeah, it's not only the guide scope. I also experimented with this kind of 200mm lens. So, it works very well, right? I can get it to even, fit very tight on this thing.
Yeah.
But then you only have this flimsy display, right? You can have sort of zoom into it and you can sort of see the spikes, but I don't think it's letting in through enough light.
Yeah.
And then if you say there's
I have a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
One thing that I found out when I made my own by hand is that the more slots, the better. When you use the material that you're using there to make a Bahtinov mask, you're kind of limited by the structural strength of the material. So you're kind of limited in the lineal amount of diffraction surface. So a harder, tougher material would be used, and that would help it out. The other thing is, have you tried using Backyard EOS to display your images on there, because it does an automatic stretch, and it's very easy to focus with a Bahtinov mask using Backyard EOS on a bright star. You do want to go to a fairly bright star to focus. I have a commercial Bahtinov mask that I got for my 11-inch, and it works okay, but if it had 3 times the number of slots, it would be able to work much better on a star. So it wouldn't be necessary to have to go hunting for brighter stars. So that's sort of my experience. I cut my Bahtinov mask out of a for sale sign from the hardware store with an X-Acto knife. It was very tough, but it worked very well for my astrograph at the time, which was a 6-inch. So those are what my personal experience would be in the practical side.
There's also another option for small apertures, but it doesn't work with a 3D printer. It's you can laser engrave a Bahtinov mask from a piece of clear acrylic like this one.
Yeah,
that's very nice.
Yeah,
that's basically the thing that Glenn was talking about. Actually,
yeah, I have instead printed 3D printed for my 80 millimeter two masks. That this one is a double of line of this one. So that's OpenSCAD program. It's worked very well. It's fully parametric.
What material did you use for that, Paolo?
I think that this one was PETG, black PETG.
I've tried some Bahtinov masks in the past with some mixed success, I guess you'd say, because they didn't stay up. If you have support, I guess maybe that makes a big difference. But or do it flat on the bottom, right?
No,
flat on the bottom.
You print flat in the bottom like that. Yeah. And so there is no problem of support, anything.
Right. Yeah. I just seem to recall there being an issue, but I guess it was just
something. Now I have no way to point out what's the OpenSCAD Thingiverse thinks is that I used, but I will put in the notes on YouTube.
Yeah, Paolo, that would be great. I also look at OpenSCAD for some other projects, right? It's very interesting, way to design these things. And if it's fully parameterized, yeah, you can put it to any.
Yes, that's fully parameterized, and you can see it's a little more than 1 millimeter, the white and black area.
Yeah,
this is for the classical 80 ST short tube, 400 millimeter focal length, 8 millimeter opening. So that's quite.
We do a lot of threaded adapters with that too, with the Open SCAD.
Sorry?
I was just saying that we do a lot of threaded adapters.
Oh, yeah.
Using the Open SCAD.
Yeah, and also notice that Fusion 360 is threading is really complex with that program. It was very difficult for me, at least, to get threading right. So
yeah, for these kind of things, you have to go on OpenSCAD because you have the repeatability, the program interface, math, all the things that instead with other CAD that are not so, let's say, involved with the vertical on the 3D printer, you have
there are thread libraries that you link in, and that takes care of a lot of that problem, I guess.
Yeah. And me and Glenn, we developed a thread library vertical on the Astro thread, let's say the classical thread that are used in all the Astro photography equipment. And so we will have that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, just wanted to say thank you. This is very helpful. So I will try to get it as narrow as this printer can do, and see if that helps. And Francesco, what you showed, the transparent one, I already, I love the William Optics built-in Bahtinov mask, and they are also transparent. So I think that's also part of the why they are so good is because they are transparent. Let's see if there are transparent printing materials. Maybe I will experiment with that as well.
Well, I wondered if you could lay down, so start with a transparent base that's already printed. I mean, the commercial, and then use the printer to print the material, print these lines on it.
If you can get it to stick.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, with a laser printer, maybe.
I mean, there are, etching is, I mean, it's like 3D printing. It's the same mechanics. It's just different kind of head. But I think these machines are still very expensive.
Well, you could $400 to $600, I think, for some of them. Yeah.
Glenn, you mentioned you had bought a filter holder to hold your Lonely Spec.
Yes.
Engraved.
Yes.
Bahtinov mask.
Yes.
This is 85 millimeter, and what I've done here is I've put little felt pads on it, and this just fits over I just put it on the. I'm not good at using this camera. I can see that. Anyway, little felt pads to keep it from falling off of the lens hood.
Yeah.
That is,
okay.
And that is so quick. I didn't buy the filter holder because I said, well, first I want to see if this works. So I bought the Lonely Spec mask, and I said, I'll just hold this up. So I held it up in front of the lens. That worked fine. And so then I put these little pieces of felt, little felt feet for each size of lens hood. So that's something to try. It's a lot quicker, I'm sure, than using a filter holder.
Well, the filter holder has a set screws to where you can take off just a part of it, so the bulk of the filter holder stays on the lens while you're doing your astrophotography, and you just sort of put in the filter with one screw so that you don't mess up your focus after you've achieved it. But yeah, I mean that's a great solution. The filter holder, I have different step down rings for all the different sizes of lenses that I have, or step up rings, I guess. So that's how I solve the problem of it being different sizes and stuff. But
well, it's a wonderful batten-off mask.
yeah,
and the nice thing, if you go to his website, he's got a table there that will tell you for each focal length, for each F number, is this going to work for you or is it not? And he really has a good numerical prediction as to whether it works. And it works very, very well.
Yeah, no, that's a good find. And I put that in my lectures to tell people that are doing DSLR stuff with camera lenses or small reflectors. That's the way to go. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right. Good question, Marcel. Thanks. Anybody else have anything they wanted to add or discuss?
Just one last thing for Marcel. Also, I will. Sorry, I cannot be more precise right now because I am on the phone and not at my PC. But there are also very interesting little program free online for batting of screen grabbing, and that will help you to focus because you can enter in those programs what are your parameter for your lens, and at that point they give you the critical focus zone and let's say grab the screen and read the position of the center diffraction spike respect of the two, and so you are able to let's say to achieve a better focus that on just ballparking with your eye, especially with my eyes. You know. But I will put the reference to the program I think in the YouTube. Sorry, I cannot do in this very moment.
No,
or
that's
you
helpful.
could post it in the Astro Imaging Google group.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a 3D printing discussion there too, I think.
Glenn, you had you wanted to mention some upcoming stuff. We've already talked a little bit about it, but if you want to touch base on it again real quick.
Well, yeah. So been working with some of the visual folks and the program leaders for the visual public outreach star party. So the club traditionally had a couple times a month what they called the in-town star party, which is at Hoagie Park in San Jose, and then what they called Starry Nights in cooperation with the Open Space Authority at Rancho Canada de Oro on the 3/4 moon Saturdays. But COVID has messed all that up, and Hoagie Park has remodeled their parking light system to where we no longer have control over the lights in the parking. So that has to be figured out. But so anyway, as I mentioned earlier, I've been working on different modalities to share from a smartphone, from a tablet, from a computer, to share live or live stacked images from astrophotography or from a planetarium or whatever you're doing on your screen to people's smartphones, out in the wild with no prerequisites, right? So they just show up with their devices and aim their phone at a QR code to join a local Wi-Fi that we set up, and then each station, what would have been each telescope down the road, a star party would have their own little QR code that you could point your phone at to see what they're doing on their telescope. So had some pretty good learnings, and the price went way up. So I started with little 1/3-inch sensor one-shot color cameras, and that proved to be too challenging to get on the sensor, going from an eyepiece to the camera for the visual observers without doing any plate solving or anything. So we're looking at I'm going to mess up the name now. Francesco, what was your camera again? 294?
Yeah, it's the ASI 294 mm.
Yeah, so we're looking at the color uncooled version of that. So that's 4/3. So that's a $700 camera instead of $300-400. And then also I think a quality flip mirror with a lighted reticle eyepiece will be required as well. But we've been out in the field twice, and it's been a real learning experience. Like, I was all hot on these QR codes, and I figured out how to mount them on a mic stand with a guitar pick holder and all this stuff. And then somebody said, well, what are you going to do because it's night? And people, and I hadn't even thought of the fact that these things your cameras weren't going to be able to see it at night. So embarrassing. But so now we have backlit signs, right? So and now we have red backlit signs, and so it's been a learning experience. So yeah, so there's a bunch of different modalities that we've got working now. So like from as simple as a smartphone adapter that mounts to an eyepiece, to where you're just taking pictures with your smartphone, and a way to share that to people's devices we figured out. And like I said, then the streaming and using Raspberry Pis to do stacking, live stacking, and with the larger sensor cameras, or we also did a DSLR last time, because the club has a couple DSLRs banging around from when I was doing that stuff with DSLRs. And so we did some live stacking with those APS-C crop sensors. So those are even bigger than the 4/3. So it was really easy for the visual observers to get onto the DSLR sensor, and they got a nice big, color ring nebula out of it last weekend. So that was good. So yeah, I want to go when we do these workshops and clinics, or the workshops, I mean, for imaging, I'm hoping that some of you will volunteer to stream your screens, and I have instructions for using OBS Studio and HLS format and a web server to stream to smartphones without the need for a client of any kind. They just use their web browser, and just via QR code. So, and the infrastructure, in terms of the router and all that stuff is and the batteries and all that stuff is worked out too. So good progress on all of that. Yeah, so basically the visual guys now, the program leads just need to go back and decide, exactly what modalities they want to use, and do you have an operator and a person that interfaces with the public at each station, or do you just have one person and just trying to figure out the next steps? But I think the technical stuff is mostly worked out. So the next board meeting, which is coming up here in a week or so, I'm gonna you know, be hopefully getting approval to go buy the gear. So we'll have probably like 5 kits for the visual folks and 2 sets of routers and inverters, so that the visual side will have a set and we'll have a set for imaging. So yeah, and Bruce, one of the learnings was just for them, just go buy a inverter battery, all-in-one lithium ion, whatever, all-in-one power station thing, so they don't have to worry about batteries and charging and all that stuff. So
Sounds good.
again, the price went up, but I think it makes sense. So
Sounds good.
yep.
Any other questions or anything else that anybody else wanted to go over? No? Okay. Well, we will be back. Hi will be hosting next month, and we'll see you then, hopefully. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.